Hi, Peter Julian, Member of Parliament for New Westminster Burnaby, speaking to you from downtown New Westminster with a very, very special guest for our Wednesday night Facebook Town Hall. And that is my good friend and an incredible community activist. He was a firefighter, represented all of the firefighters in Western Canada, and then ran for office a year and a half ago and became mayor of the city of Burnaby. I'd like to welcome Mike Hurley, who will give us the Indigenous acknowledgement.
Well, thank you for having me on tonight, Peter. And before we start, I would just like to acknowledge we're in the unceded traditional territories of the Hunkaminam Squamish-speaking people and give appreciation for being able to hold a meeting on these shared territories.
Thank you very much for that. And because it is now 7 o'clock and what we're seeing, of course, right across the cities of New Westminster and the cities of Burnaby, and in fact, right across British Columbia, we have the acknowledgement of healthcare workers, frontline healthcare workers. I can hear the horns going off there, so we're going to take a moment and pay tribute. Thank you to our healthcare workers. Thanks to all our healthcare workers from right across New Westminster, Burnaby, right across the country. We deeply appreciate all that you do during this pandemic. And I'm really happy to have you here tonight to talk about the city of Burnaby, to talk about what it's like living through this pandemic and all of the work that you're undertaking. I know firsthand the city of Burnaby has done an extraordinary job. Can you tell us a bit about what your daily life is like during this pandemic, the kind of hours that you're putting in, the kind of work that you're putting in, because we're seeing you everywhere?
Well, you know, it starts off first thing every morning, Peter, with our Emergency Operations Center, which has been going 7 days a week for over 2 months now. So that's our first 2 hours of the day where we go there and make sure we're meeting the needs of the public. But this kind of emergency operations center differs greatly from the ones that I have been in my past life as a firefighter. When I talk about 9/11 in New York, when I talk about the fires in Kelowna, and you know, the fires in Fort McMurray, which I had the pleasure of being. I don't know if it was pleasure, but I was there as part of the teams there. So this emergency operations center is very different. At least in the other cases, we knew what we were fighting against. And right now it's a bit of everyone's chasing the rabbit down the hole to see if we can find ways to get out of this thing.
Yeah, so the Emergency Operations Center involves the first responders in the city of Burnaby, I imagine, and it's basically where you touch base for the situation for the pandemic, and that's how you basically set the scene for the priorities for the coming day and the coming week.
That's correct. We have about 45 people that meet every morning, from our engineering to our parks, to all the different groups within our city. And we face up to, you know, whatever calls we have taken from the day before, which is usually about 90 calls. We try to answer all those and get solutions and try to find a better way forward. So it's slowed down, thankfully, over the last few number of days, but at the start of this, it was a hectic place to be. And our staff have done a tremendous job. And I can't say enough about the work that's been done through our EOC and right down through our whole staff in our city.
I've been impressed. I toured, as you know, with you and Raj Chauhan, our MLA from Burnaby Evans, experiencing that appropriate level of social distancing, but toured the Bill Copeland Arena. That is quite groundbreaking, because what it does is provide supports for for homeless people in our community. And can you tell us a bit about how that came about and the number of people that are being helped by being inside, appropriately social distanced, warm and dry, and having all of the basic needs supplied?
Yeah, so normally we would, our warming centers would run from November through the end of March. But because of the pandemic, we decided that we were going to stretch it a bit more so that, you know, the most vulnerable in our community were looked after through this very difficult times. But we had to do it in a way that preserved social distancing, physical distancing, and as you saw the way it was laid out within those hockey rinks, that it was very well organized by our staff so that all those needs were met and people were able to come in, have somewhere safe to stay, get a bite to eat, and to stay warm or to stay dry. And so we're very proud of the efforts we have made through this to ensure that we're doing our bit to look after the most vulnerable in our society.
How many people have been helped through what the city's done with Bill Copeland?
Well, we're doing about 80 a night.
Wow.
In our warming centers, 80 people a night on average. And, you know, if it wasn't for those types of centers, they would be living in our parks or living on our streets. And, you know, for a society as wealthy as ours, I kind of find that unacceptable. And so certainly we're going to continue to do as much as we can within our abilities, of course, as a city, to ensure that we're trying to assist as many people as possible.
Yeah, and thank you for that terrific work. I'm here with Mayor Mike Hurley of the City of Burnaby. This is Facebook Live, and we're here to answer questions you may have, questions about what's happening nationally, questions about what's happening in the City of Burnaby. All of those kinds of questions are very important. I see Saeed saying, God bless you. Thank you, Saeed, for your comments as they're starting to come in. If you have questions, we're here to answer them. And I should say one thing that was very important that we managed to achieve just yesterday. The NDP caucus and Jagmeet Singh, as our Member of Parliament for Burnaby South, pushed the government 2 weeks ago to commit to providing some supports for seniors. The announcement that came out yesterday is a result, direct result of our caucus pushing hard, Jagmeet Singh and myself as House Leader. And what that announcement is in the next couple of weeks will be a payment of $300 for seniors on old age security and another $200 for seniors who are on the guaranteed income supplement. So up to $500 for seniors. It's a good step. I know that people are very challenged in our community. An important first step. We still have a long way to go. And so we're going to continue to push so that seniors and people who lose their jobs, small businesses, students, everyone in the community are supported, because we want to get through this pandemic, leaving nobody behind. Gloria, thanks very much for your comments. She says this is awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments to me and Mike Hurley. Mike, can I ask you what organizations in the city of Burnaby have really impressed you over the course of the last 2 months? It's been 2 months really since Parliament was suspended and since the pandemic really took hold. Who are the organizations that you've been most impressed with? I know in the city of Burnaby you're doing a terrific job. Are there other people that you like to shout out to, or other organizations? Yeah,
there are so many people, and you mentioned seniors in our community and many of the challenges they're having. You know, being isolated, being asked to stay home, and many of them are doing that. But in doing that, they're having trouble getting out to shop, even getting meals prepared. And there's so much going on within our city. I'm so proud of the different groups, the neighborhood houses, the Ryan's Rainbow, to name another one, our homeless society, doing just tremendous work and ensuring that our seniors, the needs of our seniors and our homeless are being met. So there's so much going on within the city, and I hope I haven't left out some names that I will think of later, but also our own staff. I've prepared 5,600 meals frozen meals.
5,600 meals?
5,600 meals that are being delivered to seniors who really need help throughout this crisis. And they get delivered every Friday, a week's supply of dinners. And that's done through our own staff here at City Hall. And we're so very, I can't say enough about the work that's being done within our city. It's just a tremendous effort.
Well, that's due in significant part because of your leadership as well, Mike. You've been reaching out to people right across the community, and your experience as a first responder, understanding the importance of getting on top of these things, has been real leadership for the city of Burnaby. Got comments from Aruna. Thank you very much for saying. Says Mike and Peter are not only humanitarians but also visionaries. What fantastic progressive work from our communities. Zenny says thank you very much. Thank you, Zenny, for your positive comments. We have Henry who says BC has done a great deal to deal with COVID-19. Thank you very much for your comments, Henry. And that's very true, isn't it, Mike? When we talk about the other provinces, that it's been very saddening to see the outbreaks, particularly in seniors' homes in Quebec and Ontario. The death toll has been frighteningly high. BC has managed to flatten the curve. What is your impression, given your experience as a first responder, on the job that the BC government has done working, of course, with people right across the province?
Well, I think they've done an amazing job of not over panicking, but laying a path that everyone can follow through Bonnie Henry and through the leadership of Adrian Dix. They've just stepped up to the plate and laid out a real solid pathway forward that everyone could understand, that everyone could follow, and it's been very consistent. And I think that's been the key all the way through this. They got on it right away, and people are seeing the difference it's making. I mean, in BC, unfortunately, we have had 130 deaths up to this point today. Unfortunately, mostly in seniors' residence, and but even counting that, and I don't downplay numbers, because sometimes we all see numbers. Like if you look at the worldwide numbers for deaths, 293,157 deaths worldwide. And it's very easy to think of numbers, but each and every one of those people are someone's mom, someone's dad, someone's brother or sister. So I think we should really appreciate the work that's being done by the BC government, by Dr. Bonnie Henry, and the great leadership that's been shown. But also the residents of BC have really stepped up, pulled together, just like we have here in Burnaby. And it's something to be very proud of, how our communities have come together through this really challenging time.
Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to shout out to Caring During COVID-19, the organization that's been doing work in both Burnaby and New Westminster, and the New West Helping Hands as well, that have been doing terrific work. As you mentioned, Mike, it's really across the board, from the provincial level to the civic level, but also the organizations that are involved as well. Joe says, thank you both for being champions for the people you represent. Thank you very much for that, Joe. And Zenny says, Mayor Mike, thank you for your support. You're the best. So passing that on this Facebook town hall. We've got a question coming up from Lynn, but I did want to say to everybody who is listening to this Facebook Live town hall, and we've got people from right across the country, as well as people in Burnaby and New Westminster, that there will be a special surprise at the end of this Facebook town hall. I won't reveal it, but it involves Mayor Hurley, and it involves the city of Burnaby, and I think it's quite a musical treat that I think you'll quite enjoy. In the meantime, if you have questions, please raise them. And I'm going to be shouting out to somebody who just phoned me from Ottawa in just a moment. We've got, sorry?
Could I just add something? I know Aruna came on there to speak, and I just wanted to give a shout out to Aruna and the great work she's been doing in the community as well. And I know this Saturday, she's having a food drive at Caribou High School, I believe between 11 and 2 o'clock. So bring those food hampers to Caribou High School. I'll be there assisting on Saturday with Aruna and her group, who continue to do great work in our communities.
Thank you, Aruna. And I now that I know about it, I'll be there too. Thanks very much. Lynn asks, Mike, have you had any update from Trans Mountain about the lack of physical distancing at the Burnaby Mountain tank farm and risks? I think that was a question that some people have been asking. Have you had any update on that? This is more of a federal area, but
yes, and we've been getting many calls related to that issue of social distancing at Trans Mountain and many other construction sites. Unfortunately, we do not have the authority to go in there and demand that they do social distancing. Those authorities live with WorkSafe BC, they live with the federal government, and they live with the health ministry as well.
Okay.
And I have written to WorkSafe BC and the Minister of Health, Adrian Dix, on this matter. And I know that WorkSafe BC has visited there 3 times. Today I received a response actually from Ann Nasser, President and CEO of WorkSafe BC, indicating that additional inspections will be undertaken of the tank farm up there. So we are doing as much as we can. We're pushing it as hard as we can within the rules that we can use. I've also discussed this matter with Ian Anderson, who's head of the efforts that are going on up there, and we have received a 69-page report from him on some of the efforts that they say they're making up there. And however, I am concerned with the lack of specifics and reports on what they're doing to actually enforce it themselves within. So we will keep pushing as best as we can with those who have the powers to actually ensure that social distancing is being met on the tank farm.
Thanks very much for that, Mike. Appreciate the comment and the follow-up that you've been doing as mayor and the city of Burnaby has been doing as well. I mentioned earlier I'd be doing a shout out, and I want to shout out now to a man named Jim, who has been, in a sense, one of the poster people for my private members bill, which is to bring in universal pharmacare for this country. He is somebody who I've spoken about in the House of Commons numerous times. He lives in Ottawa. He's on disability, and his disability does not pay for his medication, which means he has to beg right outside the door of the House of Commons to get the money to pay for his medication every month. And I've raised his name so many times because you have members of Parliament from all parties walking past him on the way into the House of Commons. If that is not a very clear indication of the importance of putting into place universal pharmacare, I don't know what is. So I have dedicated the private members bill that I've spoken to you, Mike, about, as well as and gotten the support of the city of Burnaby, as well as the support of the city of New Westminster. And Jim phoned just before this broadcast to provide more support for that pharmacare bill and to find out what the NDP was doing in the House of Commons to move that along. Parliament is suspended, so for the moment, pharmacare cannot be voted on, but as soon as we get back and the suspension ends, we're going to move forward and we're going to put in place, I'm confident we're going to be able to put in place universal pharmacare so that people in Burnaby or anywhere else in the country will no longer have to beg or borrow to try to get enough money to pay for their medication. And that was always Tommy Douglas's dream as well. I've got another question coming in. Keith says from the Forest Grove neighborhood, thank you very much for being on and doing this show tonight. And he is asking, when should we expect Burnaby tennis courts to open? So that's the question I'll put to you, Mike.
Well, that's an easy one for me today. They actually opened today.
Oh,
And,
awesome.
but they're limited on what we can do because we have to be sure that we're, keeping the rules as explained by Dr. Henry. But the Burnaby tennis courts open today. And so we hope to start opening some more of our facilities in the next few days, our outdoor facilities, but there will be limitations on how they can be used.
Okay, and the conditions, I guess, are can you play doubles tennis or?
No, it's
No.
a singles only, and
Yeah.
You play your game and then you pick up and you leave. You don't sit around and socialize afterwards. So
Yeah,
we're all those different rules, and they'll be very clearly posted within the tennis courts. I know there were many new signs went out of the city today. So we're we, as much as anyone else, we want to see our facilities up and running again, but we have to be sure we're doing it in a responsible way.
Yeah, and that means that the people should be prudent as to not handle other people's balls. Let's just practice what is smart and what the medical officers have been very, very clear about. I've got a comment from Carol Ann. Thank you, Carol Ann. Many Burnaby service providers have been working as a team to help all of Burnaby residents, and it starts with leadership from the top. Thank you to our Mayor Mike, our MPs, and all of the Burnaby MLAs and the Burnaby School Board as well. Thank you very much, Carol Ann. And of course, we shout out tonight to our 4 MLAs. We have Raj Chauhan, we've already mentioned, in Burnaby Edmonds, the Deputy Speaker. Katrina Chen, who is the MLA for Burnaby Lougheed, but also the Minister of State for Childcare, Ann Kang, who is the Minister for Citizen Services and the MLA for Burnaby Deer Lake, and Janet Rutledge, who is the Deputy Whip of the government and the MLA for Burnaby North. They're all doing fantastic work in the community. So that's a great shout out, Carol Ann, to all of us. Thank you very much. Sebastian asks, thanks for the social distancing provisions on the Central Valley Greenway. Can we expect any more COVID-19 friendly streets?
That is something that our staff are working on, and we're getting very close to having a few of those COVID friendly streets moving within our city. We do recognize that we need to do more of that, and certainly our staff are working towards that. Hopefully we can have some streets in each of the 4 quadrants of our city so that people can walk more freely and enjoy our streets even more.
Yeah, thank you for this. I'm here with Mayor Mike Hurley. This is our Facebook town hall on Wednesday evening, and we're answering questions on federal issues, but also on city issues. And as I mentioned earlier, we've got a special surprise right at the end of this broadcast. Mike, can I ask you a question of what you feel is the biggest challenge right now? You appeared in front of the Finance Committee 2 weeks ago as along with Mayor Jonathan Cote, you were the 2 city representatives speaking on behalf of cities right across the country. People are still talking about your appearance at Finance Committee, and you raised some of the issues that the city is facing. What are the issues that you think that the federal government should be taking into consideration, and the biggest challenges that you're seeing?
Well, certainly my most disappointing thing that I've had to do as leader of the city has been to lay off some of our staff, which is a very difficult thing to do to your family. And I consider all our staff as part of our family here. And unfortunately, we have had to lay many off as it's just the way things are right now, unfortunately, with our facilities closed. But what I was suggesting was that, the government proposes for businesses and for other parts of our society that they will pay 75% of the wage for people to keep their employees at work to do different tasks. And what I was suggesting, given that, we have paid diligently into the EI fund for, tens and probably 50 years, and really our workers have never claimed anything out of that fund, about $4.5 million a year we pay into that fund. Yet, we're a group that's told we're not entitled. Our employees aren't entitled to get that 75% rebate to keep them at work. Because, Peter, as you know, we could put them to work here in the city doing much of the social issues, ensuring that our seniors are being looked after to an even greater degree than what's happening right now, to ensure that our homeless are being looked after. We can certainly put them to work doing different tasks. And I think it's only fair that that 75% should be extended to the cities as well, given that we're a massive employer, groups of employers throughout Canada. So that was my ask, as you know, that 75% subsidy be extended to our employees, and not just the employees of some of the richest businesses in Canada. You know, we all know who they are. So it seems to me like our employees are being treated in a different way than others.
Yes, and I thought your presentation at Finance was very effective. I've pressed the Finance Minister a number of times since then. It doesn't seem logical that cities and civic institutions can't access the wage subsidy. We're going to continue to push this issue. I know Jagmeet Singh has raised it as well. We're going to continue to push this because it simply is unfair to force the cities into a difficult situation when what they should be doing is actually providing support. The federal government gets the lion's share of the tax dollar. And so the federal government should be providing some supports to the city of Burnaby and to all cities at this time. I've got a question coming in from Maharani, who asks, what departments are still open at City Hall?
Well, the departments that are still open are our planning departments, our building departments, our engineering departments, because as you know, the building construction is still going ahead. That's been declared as essential to keep that work going. So we are still keeping all those departments open so that we can allow those businesses to continue. So although City Hall itself, you have to make an appointment to come into City Hall, obviously, so we can maintain safety for our staff as well. So those departments are still open, still running at full steam ahead, and ensuring that we're able to support those businesses that are still operating.
And as long as people phone in advance, then they can do the follow-up through City Hall.
Absolutely, those names would be left with the security at the door, and they're allowed to come in for their appointments.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you for clarifying that. We've got a question for Nancy, and Nancy says, thank you. You guys are doing a wonderful job. Hope you'll do this again. What do you plan to do with disability benefits, and what do you guys are going to do to help out with people with disabilities? Thank you, Nancy, for that, and thanks for being on the town hall tonight. As I mentioned, we forced the government 2 weeks ago to make the announcement that they made yesterday around seniors. As part of that motion that was passed unanimously, presented by Jagmeet Singh, and I did the negotiations as House Leader, we said to the government, without delay, they need to introduce additional benefits for seniors and people with disabilities. We have been told by the government that they still need a few more days before they make the announcement around people with disabilities. So Nancy, stay tuned. And we hopefully will have information very shortly about some additional supports for people with disabilities. Like with seniors, people have more expenses over this period with the pandemic. It's something that has had an economic impact on all of us. So we're pushing hard for that announcement that'll happen next week. For people who, for a variety of reasons, need more information about government programs, Nancy, you know our number. It's 604-775-5707. So I'll hold this up, 604-775-5707. If you want to contact our office, we've got an extremely talented, hardworking team here in New Westminster Burnaby. Ravina, Aladi, and Doris do a remarkable job. And so if you have questions around benefits, whether it's seniors, people with disabilities, or real support that you need for casework. If you're not in our constituency, which is basically East Burnaby and Caribou Hill and the area around Edmonds, we'll make sure that you're in touch with Jagmeet Singh's office. Jagmeet's team is dynamic and does wonderful follow-up as well. And in the north, we have Terry Beach's office as well, and we can get you in touch with his team. So if you're experiencing difficulties with any of these federal programs, don't hesitate to give us a call. We can provide that support and make sure that you're getting the support that you need. Now, sorry.
Could I just add into that, Peter? You know, if you're having, you or anyone you know who's disabled are having any trouble with food security or just sheer isolation, call Burnaby City Hall, and we will do our best to ensure that we can assist you in whatever way we can. We're here for our community, so call Burnaby City Hall if we can help.
Thank you very much for that, Mike. And so I'm here with Mike Hurley, Mayor of the City of Burnaby, on this special broadcast on Wednesday night, Facebook Live. We've got a special treat coming up in about 15, 20 minutes at the latest, musical tribute that I think you will find quite remarkable. I'll save the surprise for later. The questions keep coming in, and thanks so much for people for tuning in. We have a question: are there federal programs for mental health support? And so the federal programs for mental health support, thank you for the question. We have not seen that developed yet. Now at the provincial level, of course, Judy Darcy, who is the MLA for the City of New Westminster, is the first Minister of Mental Health and Addictions in the country. So the BC government has put many of those things into place. Federally, we are pushing to have a similar ministry in place. But for the moment, there are not any comprehensive programs for mental health support at the federal level. We continue to push for that, and we'll continue to try to make a difference for that as well. We have a question from Edward. Is there a push for the BC Lottery Commission to pay out 10% of online gambling, seeing that the casinos are closed? And is the city losing revenue that could be used for many programs for citizens in Burnaby and BC because of the closure of the casinos? Mike, has that had an impact on the city of Burnaby, the closure of the casinos over the last little while?
Yeah, absolutely. We get about a $1 million a month from our casino in Burnaby that goes out to all the different groups, the different groups and the different needs within our community. We don't use that for our general fund. We put that right back out into the community for special events to support some of our homeless causes within the city and other issues that need to be addressed. So yes, it's had a real effect on our city from that perspective. So yeah, we get about $1 million a month. That of course is part of much of the lost revenue that we lose. Overall, we're down about $5 million a month in revenue coming into the city. So it is having a real impact on us too. And if you consider $2.75 million equals a 1% tax raise within the city. So $5 million a month is really a big hit to our bottom line.
And that's where you raise the issue of the wage subsidy and what a difference that would make, because currently you're having to basically lay off employees. If you had access to federal wage subsidy that many other sectors have access to, then you would be able to make sure you can bridge this period, and that's why we'll continue to to push. There is no doubt. You made a very compelling argument to the Finance Committee, Mike, and I think we'll just keep pushing the issue until the federal government responds accordingly. The wage subsidy really should be open to municipalities. I wanted to ask you a bit about your vision of the recovery coming out of this. The city of Burnaby has been making a tremendous amount of investments to take care of people during this pandemic. We talked about the conversion for people who are homeless, all of the other supports that the city of Burnaby is putting into place, and so I'm wondering, and like to hear more about what your vision is coming out of this pandemic. What would you like to see for the city of Burnaby, for the province, for the country? What's the kind of rebuilding that we need to do?
Well, first of all, from a business perspective, our Board of Trade has started a task force, which I'm sitting on that task force, and we're coming up with new ideas about how we can attract people back to our city, get our businesses back up and operating again. As we all know, that's going to be a slow process, and we're working very diligently with our business community to ensure that we can get that back rolling as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And I'm pretty excited about some of the ideas we're coming up with within that group. I think it's going to be very good. But from a social perspective, you know, Peter, that my big issue with all levels of government is housing. And until the federal government starts truly investing in housing, which is really their mandate, part of their mandate, we have offered up 6 sites that we're willing to lease to the federal government. We're just ready to go. And we have set them all aside. And if they put up the money, we can start building that housing tomorrow so that people do not have to be on the street and they actually have somewhere to come and live, somewhere where they can afford to come and live. So I think that's the number one issue for all our cities. Certainly in BC, you know, there's too many people living on the street, and COVID, I think, has added to those numbers. And
yes,
unless we start getting a real grip on that, our social issues are going to continue to spiral downwards. So I think unless we get a grip on housing, the other issues are not going to be very solvable.
Yes, I completely agree. And the reality is it costs a lot more to keep people on the street than it does to provide affordable housing. When the former federal Liberal government ended the National Housing Program, that's when we started to see homelessness develop right across our region and right across the country. But here's some interesting facts I put out for the town hall. I know that Mike knows them already, but I think it's important to share with all of you who are listening. The reality is Canada gives away about $25 billion every year to overseas tax havens. That's money that really should be used collectively for things like providing for housing. $25 billion every year goes to overseas tax havens through tax avoidance agreements that are signed and that are legally put into place. And this happened under the former government. It's happened under the current government. $25 billion. For a fraction of that, and we saw this after the Second World War, we could make sure that we had affordable housing for everybody. And as you mentioned, Mike, the city of Burnaby has offered 6 sites to make sure that housing, so that the land's already available. It's just that the federal government has tried to shuffle this off to other levels of government, to the cities, to the provinces, rather than providing the supports. And so it seems to me that we can't afford these luxuries anymore, like these overseas tax havens or the big bailouts to the banks. What we need to do is put money where it counts on things like housing.
Well, certainly it's, you know, the question I would put to the government around that is, how does tax havens benefit Canadians? And I think we all know the answer to that. It doesn't benefit Canadians. I can't even understand how we can, you know, come up with the way to justify tax havens and billions of dollars being sent offshore, while our people are living on the street. And, regular Canadians are struggling to make ends meet. You mentioned the fellow and I've seen him many times on the Hill, who's out there choosing between feeding himself or getting the medications that he needs to keep himself alive. Those are the issues that we really need to start to come to grips with. And Burnaby, we're prepared to do our part. Here are 6 sites. The federal government has announced that there's money out there, although none of us have figured a way to actually achieve any of that money.
Yeah.
To get $50,000 to investigate a site, you have to fill out a 200-page questionnaire, which even for our professional staff is quite a challenge. And, so let's get rid of the red tape. Let's get rid of excuses, and let's stop announcing all these programs that we plan to do. Let's get shovels in the ground. Let's start building housing. We in Burnaby are doing our part. Now we say to the other levels of government, we need you to do your part.
Yeah, and that's very simple. It's a different vision of society coming out of this pandemic, that rather than having the situation where people were stressed, struggling to try to pay for, to keep a roof over their head or put food on the table or pay for their medication or pay indebting themselves up to their neck to go to post-secondary education, that instead we eliminate the frills, the handouts to Canada's biggest, most profitable corporations, the overseas tax havens, and we invest in things like housing, invest in pharmacare, invest in our healthcare system, and also invest in making sure that education is accessible, because that makes a difference for all of us and helps to generate jobs in the new economy. The final point I guess I wanted to raise with you in the future is something we've all observed, and that is the awful situation in long-term care homes. In BC, again, we've done better than other parts of the country. Don Davies, our health critic, has suggested putting in place, and Jagmeet Singh has supported this as well, that long-term care be part of the Canada Health Act, funded by the federal government, and making sure that there are high standards for people who are in long-term care homes. We've got high standards in Burnaby, but not necessarily replicated right across the country. What are your thoughts, Mike, on having in place real standards around long-term care with the appropriate level of funding so that every senior lives in dignity, regardless of where they live in Canada?
Well, there's no question there has to be more stringent standards put in place around care. In my past life as a firefighter, we attended many care homes, and in fairness, many of them in Burnaby are very, very well run, very well staffed. But there are a few that you go in there and you just know that they're not up to the same standards as the others. So I think instead of the race to the bottom, we should be racing for the top to ensure that we're getting the best standards for the people who built this country, for the people who paid the taxes for 50, 60 years of their life, so they can finish out their life in dignity with their families coming to visit them. And I think that's a very important piece that needs to be addressed as soon as this pandemic starts to slow down.
Yes, absolutely. And that's part of the vision that you've been talking about as we come out of this pandemic. And certainly Jagmeet Singh has been talking about this too, that we can't go back to the old normal where half the families were struggling and were within $200 of insolvency on any given month, that there was not even clean water or adequate housing in Indigenous communities. People are struggling with affordable housing in Burnaby and New Westminster and across the Lower Mainland, and all of the other things that came with the old normal. Like coming out of this, we need a new normal that is very much a better approach, using the resources that we have in this country in a much more effective way to add to the quality of life of all of our citizens. Now we're coming down to just before the surprise that I told everybody about at the beginning of the hour, which was to make sure the musical tribute to the times we're living through and the city of Burnaby. I wanted to ask you, Mike, if you have any concluding words you wanted to leave us with. You've been terrific tonight. Thank you so much for being on the Facebook town hall, and thank you so much for all your contributions that you make to the city of Burnaby. Do you have any final words you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, first of all, I'd just like to thank you, Peter, for inviting me on, and Doris for making sure that we're centered in the frame here. Yes, I want to really thank the residents of Burnaby for working so hard through these difficult times, following the directions that have been laid down. And I know it's difficult. People want to be out in the parks. People want to be in our community centers. And, it's tough in families, young families. I just want to say to all the residents of Burnaby, I'm so proud of each and every one of them for the great work we have done to get us to the point now where we can start talking about reopening and moving forward, working with our businesses again to ensure that we build a better community and come out of this even stronger. And I cannot but just be so impressed with everyone in our community.
Thanks so much for being on, Mayor Mike Hurley of the city of Burnaby. I talked earlier this hour about the special tribute at the end, the special surprise. And so we will conclude with that. Thanks to everybody for watching, listening. And remember my number, 604-775-5707. If there's anything we can do to help, stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you for watching tonight. And the best is yet to come, the musical tribute to the city of Burnaby. Mayor Mike Hurley and Councillor Joe Keithley in an original song, because we're all in this together. And if you buy it online in the iTunes store, the benefits go to the food bank. Thanks very much for being with us tonight, Mike Hurley. And here comes the video. Stay safe and stay healthy. Good night.
Good night.